Hi guys, welcome to the first biology video on this channel. Today we'll be discussing the hierarchy as well as an intro to biology. We'll talk about why it's important as well as the structure to the hierarchy. So starting off, why is it important? First of all, it helps us think about parts of the system while keeping the big picture in perspective. It also helps us from getting lost. So if we're, talking about really complex processes, using the hierarchy will help us stay on track and also know where each part falls in the hierarchy. It also provides framework and is a building blocks for finding where properties of matter and life all reside in. So starting off the hierarchy, we have the subatomic, which are basically components of the subatomic particles, which we will go over in a few seconds. These are quarks that make up protons and neutrons, as you can see here. Next is the subatomic, which is parts of an atom. It's composed of protons, neutrons, and electrons. Protons are positively charged, neutrons are, as the name suggests, neutral, electrons are negatively charged. Moving on to the atom, which is the smallest bit of an element that can hold properties of said elements. And these are carbon, magnesium, and anything you can pretty much find on the periodic table. I won't go too much into detail as in the chemistry video before this one. As you can see here, I just have the basic sketch of the carbon on the periodic table. Following that, we have the molecule and ionic compounds. For molecules, this is a covalent bond, which basically means that electrons are shared, and this bond only occurs between nonmetals with other nonmetals. An example of this would be H2O, which is water. They have a covalent bond. The next one are ionic compounds, and again, as the name suggests, the bond is ionic, which means that this bond only occurs with metals and nonmetals. A very good example of this would be NaCl. Moving on from the very small particles that make us and everything around us, we have the organelles. These are cell parts that perform specific functions. As you can see here in my very badly rendered mitochondria and ribosome, both are organelles that have specific functions. For example, mitochondria, that is the site for cell respiration. And the ribosome has several functions depending on the cell and where the cell is located and what it's supposed to do. But one of the functions that is most common in ribosomes is mRNA translation. Next, we have the cell, which is the smallest system in which life may emerge. Some are alive, like bacteria, and some are part of multicellular organisms, like a human cheek cell. So as you can see here, I have a unicellular. There's two different types of cells. There's unicellular and multicellular. Unicellular, obviously in the name, there's only one strand of DNA in them, while in multicellular, there's several places where DNA may be packed in. Moving on, we have the tissue, which is a collection of specific cell types with specific functions. So the one I have depicted here is skeletal muscle. Yes, our skeletons do have muscles. And it's made up of cells that all have specific functions that they have to carry out in order to produce these tissue cells. From the tissues, they are then built into bodily structures, such as the ones I have depicted here, the lung and the kidney. They are then put into organ systems in which the organs interact chemically or physically to perform a function. An example of this would be the digestive system or the respiratory system. From organ systems, we can then move on to multicellular organisms. These are composed of multiple independent and differentiated cells. Some examples of multicellular cells are humans. So if you're watching this, you're probably a human. Um, Next, we have trees. Although they look a little different than us humans, they are definitely multicellular as they do very complex processes like we humans do. Following that, we have mushrooms, which again, although they look very different from a pine tree to a human to a deer, we the mushrooms have their own organ systems, cells that make them multicellular. From that, we have population, which is a group of organisms of the same species. They're usually local to one another, so it could be a field of flowers, or a colony of bacteria, or a herd of deer. Finally, to end the hierarchy for this video, we have the ecosystem, which is community plus a non-living environment. So for example, in the drawing, I have humans, which are alive. We have dogs slash a grizzly bear, kind of depends on how you see it. We have a flower and pine trees and grass, which is non-living. Another thing would be rocks, H2O, or the air itself would be part of the ecosystem. And next, we have the biosphere, which are pretty much all habitable regions on Earth. And that concludes the hierarchy. I just want to make a note that this is not where the hierarchy technically ends. It expands further into space and theories for space. However, for the sake of simplicity and for what we will cover throughout the channel and videos, we stop at biosphere because we don't really talk about space until more advanced in biology. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!